morning and welcome to today's live webinar, ESG Strategy Execution, the Devil's in the Details. There's been so much hype and theories and confusion and pressure around the topic of ESG. Many companies have invested very heavily in making sure that their strategies are clearly defined, their goals and timelines have been set and articulated and publicized. However, when it comes to actually implementing those strategic goals, how do we ensure that every daily task and transaction reflects those goals? And how do we prove that every task reflects our goals? This workshop is session 4 in the series Business Transformation through Digitalization. This term will be explained to you a little later, but before we begin, I would like to thank the Southern African Institute of Mining and Metallurgy for hosting this session for your benefit. And thank you to our highly esteemed panelists, each an expert in their own right in the world of ESG, for their time, input, and expert guidance, which they will be sharing with us today. And thank you to each of you for taking the time to come and learn with us on this crucial journey. Also, given your expertise and experience, we would really welcome your input and participation and encourage you to ask questions in the Q&A, which we will address during the workshop. It is for your benefit, so please do ask whatever you feel would bring value to yourself and to your peers. To set the scene, I'm going to play a short video. It's part of an interview from Martin Creamer that's 2 years old. Let's have a look at that now.
Creamer Media's Mining Weekly is interviewing Dilly Naidu, the Director of Business Development at Rifle Shot Performance, a business performance company. Dilly, let's now go into this crucial issue of environmental social governance.
We have recognized that we have done a dismal job of environmental, social, and governance, specifically in the mining sector. So I believe that the mining sector and mining companies need to start doing what I will call a truth and reconciliation in this area of environmental, social, and governance, and be very honest of where you are on a scale of 1 to 10, if that's the benchmark, of where you are in the environmental area. You should have a very definitive exit plan. And I've seen mines in South Africa that are ghost towns today. If you were conscious of the environmental, social, and governance, you wouldn't have ghost towns. You will have subsidiary industries that still exist and contribute to the workers and jobs and the economy. Other than having a template that ticks the box and says, yes, we comply to environmental, we comply to social and governance. But seriously make this ESG as part of the social fabric and DNA of the company. Having said that, I am starting to see more and more South African mining companies being more conscious of the communities that they operate in the environments that they operate in, and looking at the whole governance and compliance and environment as the last thing, as opposed to leading with that.
And then, as you mentioned, how is this being monitored? Who's watching to make sure business is conducted ethically? What business processes are in place?
Yeah, I think that's a big gap, Martin. Unfortunately, with a young democracy, 28 years old, I would think our institutions have been very, very weak in being able to monitor the various sectors. They're very good. The policies that they put out, etc., is where it stops.
Creamer Media's Mining Weekly.
So, given that last statement, it seems we need more clarity. The intentions are there. What we need is actually the ability to proactively manage and monitor ourselves better. And who better to provide us with more clarity? Alexandra Russell. Alex is a dynamic results-driven attorney with a proven track record of performance delivery in governance, risk, and compliance projects, with a particular focus on sustainability. She holds a Sustainability Management Certificate from Cambridge University and was awarded an Africa Sustainability Leadership Award in recognition of her contribution to sustainability through thought leadership, and is leading a global company as Group Chief Risk Officer. Welcome, Alex. Our next participant, Michael Juden. Michael has a keen interest in corporate governance and is a member of the King Committee and a task team which wrote King 4, South Africa's Corporate Governance Code. He is also chairman of the Conscious Leadership Academy and a director of and legal advisor to the American Chamber of Commerce in South Africa, and a member of the committee of the Financial Sector Conduct Authority of South Africa. And Michael's a crazy Arsenal fan. Our last panelist is Eugen Pillay, who has worked with both private and public sector at local and international levels, with C-suite clients and senior government executives and leadership, primarily focused on ESG implementation, governance, and strategy enhancements. Eugen was the first United Nations accredited trainer registered in the SADC region and is one of only 60 registered globally to conduct sustainability development goals training. I'm going to hand over to our moderator, Dilly Naidu, who together with our panelists will unpack where the devil lives in the details. Dilly is the CEO of Rifle Shot Performance Holdings. He's also an internationally experienced business leader with over 45 years of experience in industrial sectors. He's been a dedicated martial artist and marathon runner for the past 57 years and is passionate about exploring the inner workings of ancient cultures and conceptualizing new ideas. Dilly, over to you.
Thank you, Caroline, for that introduction. It's very appropriate that we're meeting as a team as we learn on this new ESG journey. I have personally attended a number of these sessions myself. In fact, today I have a clash with 2 other invites, and this is how important the organizations and governments are taking around sustainability as well as ESG. Looking at that video interview with Martin Kramer that a number of you are very familiar with and very respected in the mining community around the world, I noticed 2 things about myself in the last 2 years. I was wearing glasses there. And now with technology, I had what is called a cataracts operation. And I'm going to give a shout out to Dr. Alison Taylor at the Gordon Medical School, who did an unbelievable job of actually inserting new lens in my eyes. So at the age of 70, moving forward, I'm younger than I was 20 years ago. So if you look at the use of technology in the medical field and allied fields, it's just incredible. My mom, who's in her 90s, also had something like this, and she called it a laser treatment. But when I look at it, it's actually an ultrasound. So that's the one thing that I learned reflecting on that interview with Martin. But today we want to talk about preserving the planet, people, while making a profit with a conscious, social conscious. You will notice as you get familiar with our organization that we're one of the few companies some years ago where we say our purpose is to further enhance our clients' operational and business with a social conscious. Have a look around and examine how many companies have actually got a purpose which includes social consciousness. And hopefully after this session, we'll see more focus in that particular area. I'm really delighted this morning to be joined with such an esteemed panel. They all happen to be friends and colleagues of mine for several years. Eugen and I go back some years while he was consulting in the resources sector, the mining, minerals, metals, and allied sector. Alex We have a long-term relationship with their organization, Cecil. We've been supporting Cecil for some 2 decades from Rifle Shot, and an incredible relationship with the organization as well as people like Alex and her team. Michael Jordan is somebody that's not only a colleague, but a friend. We special interests around the lack of governance, the corruption that's going on around the world, and the lack of ethical leadership. So I'm really, really delighted to have this conversation with these three. In addition to that, Michael also chairs what is called Conscious Companies, and both Alex and I are members of Conscious Companies that was started in South Africa, the CEO Brenda Carley, and has grown around the world. It's also complemented with Conscious Academy that's focusing on business, cultural transformation, and people transformation. We believe that to fix the corporation or government, you have to fix the individuals. So with that, I want to spend a few moments with each one of the panelists, where I want to start with Jürgen. Jürgen, as one of the only 2 certified, United Nations certified trainers in the area of SDG, ESG, if we look at the mining sector, with my experience and observation in the mining sector, on the environmental side, when minings do exploration, mine planning, and an exit plan for the life of the mine, they start off with an environmental impact assessment. So they're doing something in that particular area. When I look around over the years, on the social side, mining companies have been doing increasingly a better job on the welfare of the employees, the communities that they operate in. I've seen clinics that they've put in, educational facilities, and other social activities. Most of the companies that we deal with in the mining, minerals, metals, and allied sectors are publicly listed companies. So our assumption is that they have to abide by the rules of engagement as far as corporate governance is concerned. So with that, why is this focus now so much on ESG? So Jürgen, over to you.
Thank you, Dali, and welcome to all the participants on the call. We look forward to your questions a bit later on. I think, Dali, for me, let's start at where the focus had started. A few years ago, there was what we call the Millennial Goals, and in 2015, the UN had come together, assessed these goals, and that's where the SDGs had come from in 2015 after signing the Paris Agreement, when we started the world started noticing these changes in the environment. And when you look at the changes that you see today, whether it's the tsunamis or the heat that's causing fires, there's a loss of life. There's so much that we're losing on. And in 2015, the United Nations, or the members from the United Nations, came up with 17 goals, and these 17 goals were crafted around what's the issues that's happening in the world right now, and a way to tackle that was, if we have an idea on what the goals are and develop a roadmap, we should be heading down that route. And that's where it started off from, and that's where also in terms of sustainability, a few of the terms that you'll hear, started coming into light. Most recently, you would find a couple of years ago the term ESG, and ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. And especially as you were talking about mining companies and so on, and many of them listed. When you have listed companies and they have to, basically report to the world, report what they're doing, and this is where the ESG frameworks had come from. Depending on who's your audience and who's your stakeholders, there's different stakeholders that uses different ESG frameworks, and the whole idea is to understand what's the role that you're playing in a better world. And why is it important now, Dali, as per your question, is with the last generation that can make a difference. We can't leave it for the next generation. We have what it takes, like you say, with technology to make a difference right now and set the path and really go forward. And if you really think about it, we only have one true stakeholder, and that's our planet.
So Jürgen, I lived in Geneva in Switzerland. I know where the United Nations is, etc., etc. And if you look at Switzerland, it's a small country. It's largely a homogeneous country. We look at developing countries, and in particular, South Africa. South Africa has a history of colonization. We're a young democracy of 30 years. We're a multi-ethnic, diversified country with different value systems. So if you look at the ESG monitoring, are there different guidelines for developed countries versus developing countries?
Yes, they are. So let me start off on the SDG side. So these are two separate concepts. SDG and sustainability is an inside-out reflection, is how or my contribution to the world. ESG is an outside-in. It's how the world perceives you, and so on. So when it comes to the SDGs, it's exactly the same because we all are supposed to be on the same road, have the same roadmap to the goals of what we want to achieve. On the ESG side, yes, there are different guidelines because in developing countries, they may have access to the funding, to the infrastructure. If you look at some developing countries, and I just come back from a few countries in Africa, you'd see that, there's not always great infrastructure, our education levels, there's different priority areas for us, and therefore there's different emphasis on developing countries versus countries that similarly from your first world countries that have different issues that they're dealing with.
And Jürgen, given your role, where would you say South African government as a country and our corporate enterprises are today versus their peers as far as SDG and ESG is concerned?
All right, thank you. So I was personally very proud when the president signed the climate change bill, because if you have to look at the detail in that bill, it does talk about a low carbon economy. It does talk about the plan that we need to have as a country, and therefore, I believe we're on the right path to do so. We talk about investments, especially for energy. If we look at ESCOM today, and I don't want to jinx anything, doing much better in terms of the electricity supply and so on. And next year, South Africa is going to be hosting the G20 summit, which is fantastic for us because it gives us an opportunity to showcase our progress and specifically what we want to do going forward. When you look at the ESG side, and we'll start at your listed companies, you'll see that they are literally keeping to the frameworks, international frameworks, and I do feel that we are reporting according to the frameworks. I think, Dali, if I had to be critical though, the devil is in the detail. Having a report where you show certain criteria and so on is great, but we need to find a way to measure the impact. So whatever entities are doing or on the corporate side, first of all, there has to be a baseline. There has to be lessons learned. Sometimes companies love to showcase their great projects, and perhaps out of 10 projects, maybe 2 of them are fantastic, and that gets showcased. But there's a lot of learning in those 8 that perhaps have failed, and what can be done differently, and how do you engage your stakeholders, such as to understand the environment that you're operating in and the types of impact that you have on your entities and on your stakeholders.
So Alex, as the Group Chief Risk Officer for Sasol, I know you've been very involved with this, with your peers locally as well as around the world. And if we look at the things like standards, in your experience, the whole area of standards, uniform standards? Are there very specific standards for industry sectors, etc.? We'd love to get your view on that, Alex.
To try my tech ability to just quickly share a screen, because I just want to show some steps while I'm answering. So Caroline, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to say yes and just pop this screen up. Let's see if it's the right one. Is it saying roadmap to establish?
We don't see anything yet.
Not yet.
Yes, yes, we have it, Alex, on my screen at least.
Super, great, good. So Dilly, I think just in answering you, the first thing that we're seeing, and Jürgen started mentioning it, we're seeing a lot of regulation and policy pushing frameworks from voluntary into mandatory. And the question then is, how are companies keeping up? How are they adapting? How are they reporting? So the reason I just wanted to share this slide was, I think the first step is always to have that clear vision and to have the priorities and the heat mapping. You know, what is material? Have you engaged your stakeholders on this? And identify for yourself as a company the key topics. And with that, have the difficult conversations with the board and the exco. Make sure the mandate's understood. And then on the back of that, you can have your action plans for both the risks and the opportunities. And once you're in that space, now you get to the disclosure, the communication. And that's where we're talking about what's voluntary, what's regulatory. Dilly, what's also very important, and I think this is where we're going to spend the time this morning, what supports all of that? So yes, a company's own operating model, it's data management, and that's something very near and dear to me. And on the back of that, assurance and governance. And data management, I think, is where we're all looking at what are the best tools. I know you're going to give us some advice here. But really what we're seeing is the ISSB now is pushing for standardization of ESG reporting. Now, in 2013, KPMG was saying that only 53% of companies are really understanding how they can report their increased compliance, their administration. And with all of this comes burdens. Sometimes it's a lack of expertise. Sometimes it's a lack of clear guidelines. We're only getting some of these guidelines now. And then Morgan Stanley went on and they had a look, and it's quite a close one as well. They're saying in 2023, 72% of institutional investors were saying they were considering ESG factors in their investment decisions. But according to this Morgan Stanley survey, only 44% of companies were actually using current ESG data sufficient for making these informed decisions. So Dilly, I think there's a lot of room to play catch up. There's a lot of room to have much better handling of data, data-driven decisions, truly understanding what the data is telling us, and then really being harsh with ourselves and saying, are we demonstrating to others what we're able to do? So it's an exciting space. It's not an easy space, but I think there are a lot more tools that we're getting.
So Alex, as the Chief Risk Officer for Sasol, how do you integrate risk management as part of the overall ESG strategy?
Fantastic question, Dilly. And I think for me, one of the answers to that is risk and strategy are very much flip sides of the same coin. And the new buzzword or the new drive is to get towards resilience. So do you have a clear vision? Do you have a clear strategy? That's your step one. Have you prioritized risks and opportunities around that? And then next, if one takes ESG as a checklist, one is able to start actually driving resilience. And Dilly, I have to give a punt for another South African great export. It's called FutureFit. It is a free tool, so anybody can go onto their website. Please just Google FutureFit, developed by a South African. And what I love about it is it's a hack. So I think all of us are looking for life hacks at the moment. How can we do it quicker and better? what FutureFit does is it enables one to take one's current understanding. So these key topics that one's identified, these action plans, and it says, what does a do less harm company look like in 2050? And what does a do no harm company look like in 2050? And one can plug one's own data into these standards and understand expectations from a global perspective of what are stakeholders looking for performance-wise. And I think if one is really harsh with oneself, really holds up the mirror, using hacks like FutureFit, I think one can have those very key internal discussions, debates, and really be, as I say, very tough and harsh on oneself.
And in your experience, Alex, how are companies managing this? If you look at the whole area of integrated compliance and reporting, will technology and IT and software platforms help you, or is it being done manually, piecemeal today? And before a board meeting, trying to assemble all this stuff together.
Absolutely. So Dilly, two parts to this answer. So the one is where I was heading with FutureFit, that authenticity. And then on the back of that, real-time data, because without real-time data, if you do not have, and it's number 8 on the list here, if you do not have that strong data management with strong systems in place, you're really going to trip yourself up, because you need to, on a daily basis, you need to know what your data is telling you about your performance. And this is where the GRI has been saying, you've got to have integrated thinking. You've got to have that integrated thought leadership, and your data and your considerations around your metrics then allow these crucial conversations. And as you say, Dilly, these conversations should be ongoing. So when it's a matter of going before the board, it's part of that seamless conversation, not a mad scramble to say the board asked a crucial question. Have we got the information to give the answer?
So Alex, you mentioned data. I did a presentation last year and I said data everywhere, but no insight.
Right.
So what you're going to hear from my colleagues, Jesse and Ian, is how we can help you with technology and software tools to get the actual truth within the truth in an organization that gets to the board levels and the regulatory bodies. So Alex, thank you very much for that. I'd like to now get to my dear friend and colleague, Michael Juden. Michael needs no introduction. And Michael, I'd like to start off by asking you your definition of what is commonly known as a purpose-driven organization.
Good morning, Dilly, and good morning, everybody with us this morning. Thank you very much for inviting me. I was having difficulty getting in. I thought I was blocked deliberately. When I called you, Dilly, I was very concerned. So just before I come to purpose, well, maybe I'll do it afterwards. Okay. Well, I think that in an organization, in your family, in your personal life, until you know your purpose, until you know the why, the reason, you will never succeed. And so an organization needs to understand what is its purpose. What is it meant to do? And I think the most important part of that is moving away from it's just making a profit. So one of the things that I believe in this question of purpose and in the environment of ESG, and I'm going to be controversial, but you know that I don't like the term ESG. I think pasting together environmental issues, social issues, and governance issues, and asking a company to understand what that's all about is completely and utterly wrong. This is about sustainability. This is about longevity. Will the planet last, and will this organization last? And when you talk about sustainability, people understand what that means. So I think that a lot of the misunderstanding of what is the purpose is a misunderstanding of what environmental, social, and governance, because ESG and a whole lot of other factors all fit into sustainability. And the question is, a company should ask, what is our purpose? Our purpose is to be sustainable and to account to all of our stakeholders and ensure that this company will exist for generations to come. When I talk to Japanese clients, it's so rewarding, because whenever you're talking to them about something for the future, repeatedly comes up, next generation, next generation. I'm doing it for them. We need to be sustainable. We need to do it. That's an understanding, and that short-termism, which South Africa has taken from countries like the US, is a huge problem. And just before I end, one of the great problems with this purpose issue is that, sadly, there are two contributing factors. The first is when you talk about developing countries and developed countries, the tragedy is that we were on the cusp of a developed country, and 30 years of stealing, corruption, and inept administration have set us back. I can only pray that this government of national unity is going to do something, but to ask of them to catch up 30 years is a long time. And we've been put back very badly to a developing country. One can just close your eyes and imagine where we could have been at this stage of this conversation had we not thrown away 30 years. And the second thing, Dilly, is, and we'll come to this point a little bit later, the big problem is that the majority of the directors on boards do not understand this concept of sustainability. Many in this country do not understand the importance of sustainability and are rooted in the results that are going to be published next month. And so we spoke about it in another environment. I'm delighted we're talking to this audience, but we should be talking to the children in school, explaining sustainability to them, and they are the people best driven to train and coach their parents before they walk into a boardroom to understand what it is about sustainability. And if you listen to Alex, one of my heroes in this field, and pick up on some of those touchstones of hers, how she talks about opportunity coupled with risk, this huge new thing of resilience, which we learned after COVID, the ability to pivot. If we become serious about sustainability and all of its subsets, of which environment, social, and governance are, and governance is throughout the organization, then I think we're better equipped to understand our purpose. And our purpose is to look after the planet as well as profit, and also the people. I hope I've answered.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. I can relate to that. I've been a martial artist for 57 years. I understand Japanese culture very well. And what we have seen, based on our observations and what you've echoed, is short-term financial gains at any cost versus long-term sustainability. And that's lack of leadership. So I want to touch on some real South African situations. You've been very close to our respected Professor Judge Mervyn King, where he talks about the government or the corporation, brick and mortar, is an incapacitated person. To fix the corporation, you have to fix the individual. So if we look at some companies that have been tarnished in the public domain, including the so-called most respected auditing companies, we now need auditors to audit the auditing companies. And you look at companies like Steinhoff. Are you telling me that the board of Steinhoff did not know what was going on? the executives at Steinhoff, at Tonga Gillett, at PIC, the list can go on, and they all happen to be publicly listed companies. Some of them claim they are using the King 4 guidelines. How are we going to fix this going forward?
Well, you know, along our King journey, I was fortunate as a young lawyer when I started my studying to have met Mervyn, who was then and still is the hottest lawyer in town, probably the greatest legal and business brain post-war in this country. And being taken along with Mervyn on this journey through King 2 and then to King 3 and very importantly to King 4, driven by so many important factors. Mervyn repeatedly, as you correctly say, and I know, Dilly, you're close to him, I know that he has a very high regard and great respect for you. You're absolutely right. Mervyn repeatedly tells people a company's an incapacitated being, an artificial creation. It's the directors, they're the heart, the soul, the mind, the body of it. So the organization can only be as good as what its directors, its public, its management, its committee members are. And one of the great problems, which I touched on earlier, is, and you refer to those companies, is that a lot of these directors are incompetent in a current environment, digitally, environmentally, sustainability. They're rooted in the past. And I don't want to keep on about it, but it's all about this short-termism and making a profit at all costs. And as far as the auditors is concerned, we've had this discussion before. I'm not protecting the auditors, but they're not responsible for the accounts. And they aren't brought in to do a forensic. Clearly, sometimes there's negligence on their part, but one can't turn to the auditors of Tongaat. One needs to look at the directors of Tongaat, the public officers, the committee members of Tongaat. They're responsible for the accounts and the numbers. And the auditors are not there to do a forensic. They are there to discharge their obligations in terms of their statutory obligations. But you've got to look at the directors. And so the very important thing is that, as we often say in the governance world, how do you have good governance? You can only have it in one of two ways, Dilly. You can have it where there's a culture of governance in the country. After a sporting event in Japan, the people stay behind to clean the stadium. If you drop a bangle in the stadium, it will be handed in to the lost and found office, and you'll go back the next day and collect it. It's a culture.
Yeah.
The only other way you can do it is using the Australian example, where there is the most ruthless monitoring and penalties and consequences of not doing it. So their wardens, their police, their monitoring systems are such that if there is any breach, it's investigated, you are punished drastically. So in a country like that, they are scared not to do it properly. In a country like Japan, some of the Nordic countries, it's just a culture. It's the only way that you do it.
Yeah.
In South Africa, particularly during this last period, and not only looking at this period, looking at the period before 1994, in that period, there was consequence. And we moved into an era, there was no consequence and there was no culture. Now, for the very first time, there are green shoots and there's a flicker of hope with this government of national unity. And I think what we have to do, and particularly in the governance world, we're hoping now that we're going to see not only lip service, but an embracing of King, the principles of good corporate governance, and that we're going to move forward. But if we look back on the past 30 years, we can only become depressed and negative. We are starting again. And so at King, we're engaging now with people who are now prepared to listen to us, people that give us an audience, and we're hoping, together with incredible, outstanding institutions like the JSE and with auditing firms who are very serious now and the others, that we're going to see a different environment here. But as Mervyn ever said, always says rather, we always knew that the King Code was written. We never ever thought that that code would make a thief honest. We gave the country a code to use, as the judge did in Dudu Myani's case, where she took the code and punished dramatically for not observing it.
So thank you, Michael. So you've hit something that's very close to us. So at our organization, we talk about not values-based leadership. We talk about values-based living, how I live my life, how I behave from the time I get up in the morning till the time I go to sleep. So that's a totally different way of living to what we see in the world today and in South Africa. And I will go on to say that through Conscious Academy, the discussions I'm having with our counterparts, Dr. Jan Burgerman, who was a clinical psychologist, that the cultural transformation and the people and employee transformation is a precursor to ESG. So that's something that we will be embarking on. Is part of my profile from my global travels, my observation is that people are influenced or conditioned by the immediate environments. And so culture that you touched on, Michael, is very, very important. You know, it so happens that I have a 13-year-old granddaughter who lives in Cape Town. I was with her and took her to buy her some clothes. And she said to me, "Tata, you can't buy that." I asked her why. She said it's not recyclable material at 13 years old. So there's consumer activism at very, very young ages now. Employees are looking at leaving the existing companies because they're not eco-friendly. When I was a kid in a farm, we had horses and cows. And in the stables, my grandfather, because it got messed up, used to say, whitewash the walls. But I've heard a new term now called greenwashing. The fact that we have something like greenwashing since ESG has been established is a very, very big concern to me. So why is this term greenwashing suddenly come about?
So, Dilly, it was inevitable that dishonest organizations would lie about the extent to which they were complying with ESG. I think this country will catch up. Alex knows well, because we communicate with each other on it, that there have been some very notable court cases around the world, holding directors and officers liable for greenwashing, which is just nothing else but fraud. And now, of course, the world is it's just burst upon the world. We've now got another one. We've moved with greenwashing, and that's the new term, which is just weeks old, which is AI washing. And what companies are now doing is, because people believe mistakenly, people who have no clue how to prompt, have no idea what AI actually means. Some of them think it's a motorway, but believe that it's impressive to tell people that they've used AI in the results and what they're publishing, and none of it is true. So now what is now being investigated are these claims of artificial intelligence being used, and so we've now got greenwashing and AI washing. And so there will always be the thieves, there will always be those who take an opportunity, see a gap, and have to be carefully monitored, which comes back to my point of it's going to take a long time here, if we focus on South Africa, to have the culture. but we can move immediately into consequence. So when my late mom lost a treasured necklace when she was visiting my sister in Australia and got home and discovered it, my sister's response to her was, "Don't worry, Mom, we'll go in the morning, it'll be at the lost and found office." Because if anybody was seen taking it, they'll go to prison for a long, long time. And it was there. So culture, let's start in the schools. Let's start now building a culture. And I must tell you that I think we can catch up quickly because there's a lot to learn from African culture in this field of doing things correctly. And we need to look very closely, and I think our African brothers and sisters can help us greatly with that. So I think we can culturally catch up. I'm not negative about that. But for now, we need our justice system to show consequence that we can do immediately, and we can then work on a culture. And just before I hand over to others, your story about your daughter is, perhaps you've heard me on this. I mean, I'm like a dog with a bone on this. That pester power, sustainability is going to come from the children. When the children are taught at school, as they are, and they're given lists of what products to buy, and when that translates into a no profit in the organization, because the kids are telling their parents not to buy that product, because that's not a sustainable product or organization, then they'll stand up and take notice. So you know where the future is. The future's with your granddaughter. Yeah. And she's to be applauded for what she did. And I hope that she spreads that through the whole family, and that the whole Naidu family becomes only buying products that are green. That is the most important thing for me from what we've heard today.
Thank you, Michael. So I just saw Professor Mervyn King just launched a new book called The Corporate Revolution, and I'll be anxiously looking forward to reading it.
It's a wonderful book. David Williams wrote the book. He's a brilliant author, and he tells Mervyn's life and a lot of the stories. Not all the stories. Some of the stories are only Mervyn's little circle know. But he tells a lot about this incredible human being. It's a fabulous read. It's being launched in August.
Yeah, I will certainly have it on my bookshelf.
But it's already available.
So given our time, I would like to thank Michael, Alex, and Jürgen for their contributions. We could spend days, many workshops on this, but this is just a taste of the limited time that we had to cover some of what I thought were the key issues. So with that, thank you very much. We're now going to move into the next part of the presentation outside the panel discussion, and basically want to look at an organization, and a typical organization. If we can move to that organization chart, Caroline. So before Jesse comes on and demos and shows you the software platform that we have, if we look at ESG and a typical corporate organization, who are the stakeholders and the participants? So if we start from the bottom up, whether it's in the mining sector, the oil, gas, petrochemical sector, or the manufacturing and industrial sectors, it actually starts at the bottom. And you heard Alex say many times it's about data, data, data. This is where the data resides. It resides at the coalface, and bringing all that data up into the operations, and then getting into the financial areas, the administration areas, HR, etc. And then, of course, getting to the community and the external stakeholders, the regulatory bodies, as well as ultimately to the board of directors. So with that, I hand over back to Caroline, and look forward to the presentation and demos for the rest of the morning.
Thank you. That was really insightful. I think one thing that Alex said you know, the frameworks pushing from voluntary to mandatory, and having things be mandatory, I find people meet that with resistance because it's forced. But as Michael said, sometimes that is quicker than changing the culture. And, you know, just the reflecting on what Jürgen said about sustainability being an inside-out job. And then also talking about knowing purpose and authenticity and resilience. I think there's also a lot of fear around being authentic because there's punishment that comes with that. And it's a very difficult balance to attain. So I'm going to hand over to Jess, who is expert at making integrity visible. Jess is the CEO of international sales at SoftExpert. He has 30 years of experience in IT, including consulting services on over 500 companies during that period. And he leads and really motivates and inspires a team of champions to overseeing all operations and business activities to make sure they produce the desired results and are consistent with overall strategy and mission. And the mission is sustainable business excellence. Jess?
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, everybody, for being present in this meeting. And I'm very happy to talk about how a software solution can help implement a very efficient ESG solution. So this is very important. We see how important it is to have ESG as part of the organization strategy. As Michael said, we no longer can keep on that pace. Just companies cannot just be great about profitability. We need to go to a more sustainable model. So we mentioned that data is very important. Monitoring, bringing transparency to data is something that all company needs to do. One of the most used framework for ESG is the GRI. So GRI is basically a report that brings transparency and bring visibility to ESG initiatives in a specific organization. Very important to mention that, you know, a software is not just the solution for that, but is part of the solution. We need to use IT as a tool, because this is a culture that also needs to be developed. So that's a very important part. So solution is a very important tool, but it's not the end solution. The end solution comes from the human being nature, and we need to realize that culture is something that needs to be changed. I want to start to share my screen so you guys can actually see what I'm talking about. I guess you can see now, I defined five key steps to implement a comprehensive and effective ESG. So let's go to those steps to see how can technology help. And we're going to discuss and also try to mix between the PowerPoint presentation, also the other screens that are the software itself. So implementing ESG solution successfully involves strategic and a structured approach. That's very important. You need to have a strategy and you need to be consistent on that strategy. So that would be the first step according to many of the consulting company all over the world. So that's not my idea, it's just I collected from many organizations. First thing we need to understand that executive support is crucial. We need to have leadership involved on the ESG. So it has to be a top-down thing. We need to have a clear, defined leadership for taking care or leading the ESG initiative. Basically, that is very important. So defining a ESG governance body, it's essential. And then you need to define the roles, assign those roles, because that committee, that governance team need to be accountable and need to enforce accountability over the organization. Because that is one of the most important things, how you enforce governance. Because as on my way of see things, the governance side of the ESG is one of the, if it's not the most important, because without governance, the other environmental social initiatives are not going to work. So defining a clear governance team is one first step. Define the roles, the responsibilities, creating a committee. It's very important. So I want to share another screen. So how we, as a software platform, as a software solution, please, can you guys see that new screen?
Jess, we can see step 1, establish leadership commitments.
So I'll stop share and share it again so you can see this screen.
Yes, we could see you clearly previously.
Okay, let me start. Now I guess you guys can see that screen.
Yes.
So basically here, how a software can help on that sense of defining the role. So in our solution, you can define your organizational chart, and then there you connect every part of the organization. And then you can clearly see when you look at the flow chart of the organizational chart, the roles in the company. You can see there is a committee that's responsible for ESG. And then you can just break it down and the components, the participants on that, and the role they have into the organization and also in the ESG. So this is one first thing. Everyone that comes to your organization can see the organizational chart, and they can see there is a ESG body, ESG department, and then you can see all the people that are enrolled on that department, including the position and responsibility. This is something that the software helps to define, and then you can share that, and you can use that in a organizational chart. You can have more complex ones like this one here. So basically, the system allows you to create that structure, and then you can see it can just break down different areas and positions, and then basically on that configuration, you're going to define leadership, you're going to define relationship between people, and that clearly defines governance, a chain of command. So that's important too, because as we see in many of those instances we have, they try to deceive people by not clearly define a responsible. So who's going to be accountable when something happened according to an environmental accident or whatever, environmental impact or social impact that you have in the organization. You need to clearly define this kind of a structure where people can see a visible chart where you know who is accountable for the decision making on those companies. Second very important thing, then we have defined the body responsible for ESG. You have defined the positions, the responsibility, then we are enforcing the visibility of those positions. The second thing is how you enforce that in your operations, because you're going to have a lot of processes, a lot of things that are going on in the organization, initiatives, action planning. how do we enforce that? Then a second tool that I see as essential is using process-driven charts and automation. So basically, what we do, we create workflows to control all the activities to bring visibility to data, to bring accountability, and to orchestrate and have full traceability. So just gonna double click here. I guess that I don't know if the screen is going to be updated. Just let me know, please. Can you guys see the new screen with the amplified process?
No, Jess.
Oh, sorry about that. It's supposed to upload automatically. Let me stop and share again. I guess you can see now.
Yes, there we go.
So the workflow engine is where all the action or events you be planned. Here I'm showing a innovation management. That's very important when you're going to talk about keep improving, collecting new ideas. So what does the workflow or the BPMN process automation allows to enforce governance? Because as you can see, every swim lane, you're going to define which department, position, team is responsible for. So when you start a new event, that could be a problem investigation, can be a new idea for the committee, could be suggestion, could be a instant handling, a problem handling. You know exactly that every part of that initiative have a responsible team, accountability, and the system you trace all the activities all over the execution. So that's a very practical way to enforce governance, because if you have a structured process, an automated process, you have a clear beginning, you have a clear end, you have all the interaction between all the steps, all the information can be orchestrated inside of the workflow. So then you have visibility, you have all the data that people need to have to take decision, all the approvals, who approved, when that person approved. Then the workflow is a fantastic to standardize operations, bring visibility and accountability to all type of events you do in your organization. So basically, from a committee meeting where you have a starting the meeting, you have all the minutes and information, action plan you take on that committee, that gets all connected to that workflow, and then you have full traceability from the beginning to the end of any initiative you have. So workflows are a fantastic tool for enforce governance, keep things standardized, keep traceability, bring visibility, and and also monitor things in real time, because the workflow will show which activity is being executed in a given time. So basically, it's a kind of a GPS of every initiative. You can monitor what's going on in real time. You can see the visibility. You can see the accountability, because you know who is responsible for that. The system will track even IP address, all decision and approvals will be tracked. Also, you're going to know what kind of information that person had when they took the decision. So this is a fantastic way to define and enforce governance into organizations. The system will control also the revision cycle when you change workflows and all kind of features to keep people aware. Okay, let's get back to the original slide. I guess let's just change here to I guess that is very clear. We need to have executive support. We need to define ESG, a governance body with responsibility and commitment with all, and also spread that all over the organization. As a second step, then we need to define our ESG goals and objectives. So one of the things, you need to have your materiality assessment. So you need to conduct a assessment to identify and prioritize ESG issues into your organization. That will depend of the nature of the business. Based on the nature of the business, you're going to do the assessment. What kind of conduct of materiality assessment in how the type of activities you do, even on a social side, environmental side, and the governance. And then you need to define goals or set goals. You need to know what you want to get. So define a clear and measurable and time-bound ESG goals that align with your organization's mission, values, and overall business strategy. And then you need to integrate your business strategy with your ESG goals plans. So basically you need to break it down on your strategy, tactical, and operational, and connect those goals to what you want to achieve. Okay, so going to create and define that. You're also going to define the measurements and what you want to improve. That's like an initial step. That's also mean to be improved over the time. The third step is define your the framework that you're going to be using. Then you, based on that, you're going to define your policies and procedures that need to be clear, that need to be communicated to the whole organization. I'm going to show later, because this keep going back and forth to different screens. It's going to get a bit confused. Then I'll finish the steps, and then I'll go back to show some of the screens that how SoftExpert does with deal with every one of these issues, helping your organization to automate and bring out the visibility. So when do you define your policies? That need to be communicated to not just to the direction, but all down the chain to all those users, all those stakeholders and shareholders, because everyone that needs to be committed with that. That's a very important thing. You need to get everybody committed. Here, you clearly have to have a document control solution, because you know, this is an ongoing process. You know, we need to polish those policies. We need to improve according to the change of legislation, according to the change of the status quo of the organization. So you need to have a clear way to revise that content, communicate every change you do, and also have like a change management workflow. So depending on the change you do in your policy, you need to change things, the way you do things. Then you need to do a change management connected to change you did in a document. Our platform allows you to do this in a very seamless way, integrated. So since you change the document, the system will notify all the interested parts about that change you did on the policy, on the procedure. And also the system can plan or schedule training for the new policy, the new guidelines, new procedures, and then take the training to all interested parts, communicating them, saying, hey, you need to read this new policy, you are involved on that new document and need to be trained. How the system will control from the change onto the document until the training, even applying a test to see if people just grasp that knowledge related to the change on that policy or procedure. So having a document management, you help any organization to deal with updating things in terms of content, in terms of document, and having everybody on the same page, because every change you do, you need to guarantee that all interested parties are aware of that change. So the system, you do that, I'll show. And then you're going to define your KPIs. So basically the KPIs are part of your balance scorecard, and that's a very important part. You can define which framework you're going to use. You can use GRI, you can use SASB or other framework, but as long as you define your framework, then you need to create your KPIs. Many KPIs are very intricate, because some of them you're going to measure, for instance, how you measure carbon footprint. So how you measure your carbon consumption for any process. That's a very more advanced thing. But in our platform, you have a library of KPIs, all aligned with the ESG KPIs, where you can just select the right KPI and then you calculate that for you. So basically, you have your policy, you have a procedure, you have your goals, and then you start to break down at the level of KPIs. And then you're going to associate those KPIs to the areas where you want to measure. Remember, the KPIs are very important because if you want to improve, or if you want to have data that are trustworthy, that are, precise and accurate, where you can share, KPIs are fantastic too. But the way you collect that data also is very important. So how you collect data? In our case, the KPI can read data from ERPs or other systems, so you can just automate reading of some data. It can be manually inputted by responsible users. It can be collected through the workflows. I'm going to show you the workflow for like collection of data. The collection of it can be very flexible. You can create apps for collecting data in different formats. So this is a crucial step because basically we need to collect data. We need to collect it in the right way. We need to be precise. We need to be accurate in terms of data. And then you can start add that data to our KPIs, bring visibility so everyone can see that data in real time. When you see the data in real time, you can take actions. So you define your plan, you break it down in objects, you break it down KPIs, you connect KPIs to the areas that you need to measure. You start to measure, then you need to monitor that in real time and take actions. So basically, our platform allows you to take action when you have any deviation on KPIs. It can do automatically, or because the system you show you out the scorecard with all the KPIs, then you can clearly see deviation and you can take action based on that data. So that's the importance of having proper collection of data and make it visible, because when you make visible, you are communicating all the shareholders and stakeholders that information that bring transparency and real-time data that can be analyzed. And then you can use even artificial intelligence or other technologies to improve that data or improve the way you're going to act based on the data you have. So if you don't collect precise, if you don't collect proper data, you don't have any subsidy to take action. So first thing, collect data, make it visible, and then take action. Then you also can define goals to reduce like energy consumption, water consumption, waste consumption. You can reduce all that using, because now you are reading, you have the numbers. Going to the next step. This is, as you guys can see, all the steps are kind of connected. You need to communicate and engage internal stakeholders and external stakeholders. So the community need to be involved, and all people need to be see that this is not like just organizational thing in sense of the business. It is people related thing. So everyone is responsible somehow, even to see and denunciate things, or to participate in initiatives that are going to reduce, having new ideas, improving new ideas to save energy, to engage people in social events that you have on the social side. So internal stakeholders need to be involved, and also external. So how do you communicate to your investors, your community? Because sometimes your organization are not showing out the initiative they have in terms of helping the society around them. So that is the context of organization. They are part of the society. They are accountable as a member of society, and they need to, be accountable, and they need to communicate, not internal and also external stakeholders. So communication is a fantastic step. What tools we offer here on that sense? So first, the system you orchestrate all the communication, so all document procedure, given training. There is a learn management system built in where you can upload videos to make people aware of the environmental impact, the social impact of governance. So people can do training. That's a way to engage people when they see, they learn, because as you see, culture is very important. So people need to be educated. They have to see themselves as also responsible, because it's not like an initiative just for the top board. It needs to go down the chain, and people need to see they are also part of that, and that they need to feel this part of it. Then they get engaged to the organization, engaged with the initiative. So the solution also provides you surveys. Then you can just trigger those surveys based on the subject you want to deal with it, and then people, you answer those surveys and you get back that data for the social side, for environmental side. So those surveys, they are connected also to the workflows with other parts of the system. But basically this, the surveys, you collect feedback from your internal and external stakeholders. And then you can, based on that feedback, you can take actions. So this is like a ongoing and a cycle. You receive information, act up and see the effectiveness of that, of the actions you take, and then you see the feedback again. That's the way organization can improve and communicate using tools like as SoftExpert ESG solution. So this is very important step. Get the stakeholders, the internal and external, involved and committed and engaged with the initiative. And then, of course, you need a data management system implemented. Basically, what we offer is all the ways or different ways to collect data, integrate data, and mine that data. So basically, when you have the data, we have a business intelligence component that can play around with that data. You can slice, dice that data, and you can define dimensions, measurements, create different charts to bring visibility to that data and bring intelligence to the data. So basically, when you have the data, then you can just create, you can compare, you can define better strategy based on data. And that's why we have a very strong API to import data. You can import data using integration, using a spreadsheet, using other kind of engine for integration, and input data directly from equipment. So there is a lot of ways you can just handle data, bring it to a platform with a single version of the truth, because you don't have different disparate system. You have one platform, one single version of the truth. And then you can just go dive on that data and create panels, create charts, and now that you can just publish in portals. I will just show portals into the application, but portals are essential, because portals are a way you're going to communicate the data that you did. You can report the portals. They are a way that, like in our system, it works like a social network. You can share portals, you can follow portals, you can define as your home portal with all the data, with all the charts, all the measurements, all the initiatives. And that is fantastic, because now you have a system that can collect data, make it available, and take action based on science of that data. Monitor and measure performance. That's all we've been discussing. So using automation and artificial intelligence. So here, when you have the data, then you can find some artificial intelligence tools to help you to improve accuracy and efficiency of your data that you're going to use to your ESG. And then you need to, of course, the idea of having a scorecard with KPIs is being monitoring that, because this is the idea of collecting data and showing that data in portals, where making them visible is to monitor and take action upon based on that data. And again, also a performance review. So based on that monitoring of that data, You need to conduct regular reviews and assessment on your ESG initiatives. You can reevaluate your progress and see how you're doing against your goals, and use findings to adjust strategies and improve performance. So this is the idea of having this solution, and I'll show how our solution can help you in that sense, because of traceability of all the workflows and all the meetings that you have into your ESG board. Again, I already mentioned that transparency is one of the most important things, because if you bring transparency, more people can see the data, analyze the data, and help you to improve. So the idea of showing all the initiatives you have in place, all the data you have collected, helps to bring visibility and help people to take action over that data. So transparency is very important. Even using the workflows that we can just get back and see every single action or every single activity you have on that workflow, who was responsible, what data he brought to the system. And all this kind of a thing brings transparency. So people can see exactly what the action, who start the action, what the progress of that action during the time, what information people had, what comments, what history. All of this is available in our workflow. So you can see comments during the workflow. So people can just interact during that event or during that workflow, and how that get tracked. And then you can trace back every single action you did, and you have full accountability over the ESG initiatives. And basically, using the portals and automatic reports, you can always communicate that to your stakeholders. So that's you can define the frequency, like monthly, weekly, and then the system can also automate this kind of a communication. Feedback loop. So after we already talk about that during this, but you need to always establish this feedback loop, input from stakeholders, and refine that and enhance ESG strategy in practice. So that's a very important step. As I say, it's a continuous step. So always being reading the data, acting upon data, get feedback, get input, and improve. And also benchmarking. So you can also, that's a very important step. You can also compare your ESG numbers to your competitors or to other companies in your sector, see if you're doing well or not, because comparison is a very nice way to see how you perform. So that's a very important step, benchmarking. And innovation, as I said, that workflow that I've shown you, innovation, how you encourage innovation, how you drive people to be, actors on that innovation step. We have, well, many of our customers won awards based on innovation using our workflow, because the workflow is a very, I would say, fantastic to motivate all people in the organization to record new ideas. So basically, the ideation workflow allows you to use your mobile, start the workflow, say, I have a new idea. And then you just start that idea. And yet, when you record it, describe that idea, you find some parameters to add a new idea. And then when you submit that form with the application, that you go for a committee, that you analyze that idea, see the feasibility of that idea. And if it's, it's a winning idea, you go to the implementation. So there is budgeting for that idea, all orchestrated by our workflow. Also, the not approved idea can go to a database where maybe it's not the best time, but you keep that idea on your database. These workflows bring you the fantastic to drive to innovation, because people just, you can make anonymized, or people can identify themselves, and from the whole organization, they can access that workflow, start recording new ideas, and the system you orchestrate. So you're not going to lose. Sometimes you have people that are a little bit shy to go to a committee and say about their ideas, but if they have an application where they can type and start that idea registration, that will be much more democratic in sense of everyone in the organization can have access to that app and start recording new ideas, and that will drive you to innovation and improvements. So basically, again, I said, workflows, because the workflows standardize things, they bring them visibility. In terms of the third line of defense, so of course, how you guarantee that what you're doing is accurate, is according to what your requirements are for your ESG framework, then you need to conduct audits. In that sense, the system allows you to define a library of requirements. So then you know every requirement you need to comply with in terms of ESG. You can use other ISO 40001, for instance, and define requirement based on that for environment and also other standards. Then you have your library of requirements. When you go to audit the system, you can create the audit based on those requirements. Okay, so that's very important. So we have all this integrated. During the audit steps, then you can take action. Again, when you're doing your audit, when you have a finding, a non-conformity, the system force you right away to start on that same screen a non-conformity investigation, problem investigation, or action plan to deal with that specific non-conformity, and then you have a full report. Since you detect the findings, so you can get all the findings from a specific audit. When you have all the findings report, then you see all the action plan dealing with those findings. So you have an end-to-end solution again. Basically, the system can help you doing the audits. You're going to reduce your paperwork because the system will prepare all the requirements for the audit based on your library of requirements. You just select the items from your library, and then the audit is going to be ready to go. And then during the execution of audit, you can do the planning, the scheduling of that, the audit during the year, define the responsible for the audit. The system also control that execution step by step. In the end, you're going to have all the information available in reports, prepared automatic reports, and all the action resulting of that audit. And then the 10th step, that's so the idea of companies that needs to start. They need to start in a small scale, a viable, feasible, and then when you get that, working fine, so wow, now it's working fine, you can scale. So the system enables you to duplicate scorecards for different business units, enables you to define, scale different business units inside of the organizational chart. Then you can just scale and adapt to the new regulation, to change on the ESG. The system prepared that library of requirement that I've mentioned. It's able to revise it according to the new change on the legislation, and that's this adapt to the change that you come and keep the system retroalimentation on that sense. Dilly, how long time I have? I just want to show more slides from the presentation right now, from the system itself.
You're fine, Jess. You can go ahead for now. We'll tell you when to stop.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
So while Jess is bringing that up, Jess is actually doing a live presentation via the internet. And I see one of the questions was, can you take this to company websites, etc., portals? The answer is yes.
So I was just mentioned that workflow for ideation. So this is how the process you help you to automate all kind of automation. And down here, just let me get to the system scorecard. I guess you guys can see that screen right now.
Yes,
Yes,
Jess.
you can, Jess.
Let me see if I can. Is that the screen you can see? So here is where you can define scorecards for your KPIs. And then let me get to the portal. Can you guys see the portal right now?
We can see the idea creation page.
Oh, let me stop share, and I'm trying to find the window share here on the share. Did you say screens? Okay, so I guess so. This is
page.
Fantastic, thank you. So here is the one of the portals we already on the platform, and as you can see, we have a portal list here, so you can see portals from social data from your ESG, energy data collection, material data collection. Okay. Also my tasks, so it's very important how the system you orchestrate all the events, all the actions you have, whether it be a workflow activity, audit activity, a document revision, all those tasks will be orchestrated by the system by sending emails and adding tasks into the system. So the system send you an email, say you have a specific task to perform, whether it be document revision or collecting data. Very important. So when you configure the collection of data, the system, you define who is responsible for collecting, like the energy data collection, or the water, or the waste. And then that person, you receive email, and you define the frequency, and also a task, internal task into the system, like this one here. So those are internal tasks. As you can see, I have audit task, document task, performance task for measurement. So that's important because you need to have a system that, orchestrate that for you, and bring reminders to people and bring accountability, because the system, if they don't do the task on the day, the system can escalate, send a task, send a message to his leader or to his peer, depending on your configuration. And then you provide the engine that allows people to be accountable and take action before things go wrong. So every task will be sent by email, by internal task. Every task is scalable. So if the person doesn't execute on time, the system you see the colors here, the red are the late ones, the yellow was on the due day, and those are on time. So the system always allows to filter, and also allows you to transfer tasks to different people if, for some reason that person cannot do the task. This is a very simple part where I have shortcuts to my social, energy, material, and many other portals. So if I go to energy, this is a nice balance scorecard where you can see a portal with all your energy consumption, total energy consumption, intensity. So we can explore that data, you can drill down that data. Basically, that's what I'm talking about, bring visibility to your data. Here you can see a very clear portal, but here you have a workflow for data collection. So if I click here, the system can record the data, the name of the responsible for the data collection. Okay, this will happen automatically, but just want to show you how you proceed with data collection. That screen is not it's not loading up on the. I have to stop share and share again because it just stop sharing. I'll share again, no problem. Then you can see this. Sorry about that. So when they open up that workflow, the system will bring this data collection. This is very, I'm just showing for energy. You have for water, for other kind of materials, and you can create your own data collection. But what's important here? First, that can be automatically triggered. So the user you be responsible for that, is responsible for that collection. You receive email task reminding him with the link to that screen. So the system says you need to collect data, and there is a deadline for that. You can define deadline and also escalation engine. Here you can just define the data, the initial period, the end period of data collection. There is a lot of things related to to the data you're going to collect. So here you can define the business unit that you are responsible for collecting the data. And then you can define your energy data input. And here there is a lot of configuration, not gonna go on through this, but basically going to find the type of energy they are reading, if you like a fossil type. So that's all data that helps you to define in your ESG strategy. What if you are using clean energy? So what your consumption on clean energy or on fossil fuel energy? All this can be configured in the workflow, and then you collect that data. That also can be integrated to pull that data from other systems that you already have that data, or if you have a person that has the view account on his hand and just type that, or you can read using capture engines. So just scan those files to a folder, and the system is able to read that folder, read the view, and as a PDF or image, and extract the value and all these things, and automatically upload that data to the form. But if you look at the workflow, so basically here, if you got a problem here, you can start a Ishikawa chart to handle that problem, doing root cause analysis. Or you can take an action plan here, and then you can start or associate the existing action plan to that initiative. Let's say you have an initiative to reduce energy consumption. Then you can just associate that action plan. The action plan, you orchestrate a different team where you can monitor tasks on real time, and they receive also tasks related to their initiative. So action plan are fantastic tools to communicate and orchestrate internal actions. You can also, let's say you have the copy, or you have a PDF version of that file, just can drag and drop it here so that you have the evidence of the readings as a PDF. Just drag and drop to this area, then you get that document started. You can look at linear history. So since the first collection of data to the last, so get all the data, can define comments on that. And when you are done, you just click end the measurement, and then the system will just upload all the charts with that measurement. So all those charts you see here on this portal will be uploaded automatically. So I guess it stopped the share. Let me. So also on other tabs, you can define your tabs here. Then you can see other things you need to observe. So here you have your balance scorecard. So you have all the scorecards, are the KPIs you want to measure. See, I want to see the total energy inside of the organization, outside of the organization, energy intensity, reduction energy consumption, and those are KPIs. Energy scope, energy, so those are different KPIs you want to associate to the energy KPI. But remember, besides those, the standardized one that according to GRI report, you can create your own KPIs and add to that balance scorecard, okay? And then you can have the total energy inside, outside, a specific consumption, and then you can create another chart with, this is very easy to play around. And as I said, the portal is shareable. So you can share the link, you can define the permission set, you can export it, you can put the presentation mode, and then you don't need any PPT to presentation. Just go with the full screen, you can control what you show here. So portals can be followed. As you can see, you can define several portals and you just can follow them. And for every initiative, you can have a portal. You can see our initiatives and treatments here on the other tab. So you can start a new initiative and treatment. So this is another workflow that you can start. You can see all the data related to that. If you want to start, you just click here and start a workflow that you orchestrate a different initiative for treating, let's say, reduce or changing. This you orchestrate the people that you define on the configuration. So basically, you can start new initiatives by starting that workflow. That workflow can be also started in a mobile. So you can just start that, clicking that button, or the system can use that in mobile application. So people don't need to use just a laptop or a computer to start. They can be using a tablet or mobile phone. Action management, so you can see all your action, track your actions. So you can see all the action, the status of those actions, if they are the priority, the actual percentage of execution of those action planning. See all the action plan that I have, those that are in progress, this didn't start yet. So every icon, there is a specific information. A very important part, how you handle risk. So here you can also connect with the risk component, where you can handle risks into your environment initiative. So as you can see, the system, you pinpoint the specific risks where the last evaluation was. You can see if like a card. So then you can see by premises or by business unit, by asset. And then those cards, you can see the risk you have. And also you can see the controls you have. And you can see if the control is effective. You can see how you test those controls from here. You can also click here and go to the controls and go to see the frequency. Also here, very important. In every event that the system handles, it always enforces accountability and visibility. For instance, for those controls you have established for that risk, every control you have an owner, a person responsible for that control. The system, you send him message, say, you need to test that control. And the systems define the frequency he needs to go and measure and test that control. Also, if the test fails, he can take an action right away, okay? So the system has a full risk management platform. This risk management platform is being used by financial sector, for food and beverage, by pharmaceutical industry. So it's not just like nice charts. It's go very in-depth in terms of risk management. You can connect those risks and also due to the holistic approach of our platform, you can connect risks to your initiatives that are projects. System have a project management to your processes. Remember the process, you can go to a specific process activity you mapped and say there is a risk on that activity. You can associate risk to assets, very important from a mining industry. So you can define what kind of risk you have in your assets. We are looking at the context of ESG. So what that asset the risk can impact your ESG strategy. So that's how you manage a strategy, not just in a chart that you define strategy in the paper. This you have the strategy, but that strategy you be monitored on real time because you can connect strategy to your measurement KPIs, then you connect your measurement KPIs to a risk. So if that KPI deviates, then the system, you say, hey, there is a risk here, and you send message to all the responsibles for that risk. Also, every risk you have a responsible, like the controls. So there is a guy that will be responsible for that risk. So everything that goes on, you're going to receive notification. So basically, from your strategic side, where you define your balance scorecard as the organization, as ESG strategy, connect them to your objectives, break them down in KPIs, measure those KPIs, take action, notify, do effectiveness verification to see if your actions are effective, test controls, connect to other systems to pull data to retrofit your system. So basically, there is a lot more, but you can see risk, opportunity, controls, treatment, all you can have into the portals. Portals are fantastic because basically you define them as home portal, and all that information visibility that you can share with others, then you can provide your GRI report with accurate data, with accountability. That's why the system you provide. I'm not mentioning how you handle document process change. So if you change a specific process, also the system, you control the revision of that process. You make people aware that the process has been changed. Many sorts of problems where people change a specific process, operational process or strategic process, and then people are not aware of that change and can do things wrongly. And that is a source of non-conformity and also problem to the organization. So also processes are connected to document. So basically every process can have a policy, let's say a procurement policy. That policy will be alongside with the process. So when you start a new procurement process, you can check the policy to see if you're following all the guidelines, all the requirements for that procurement. So that enforces governance, because the moment you are opening a new procurement, a new purchase request, you have a policy alongside with the process. You just check that on the process and see the policy. Wow, I'm doing everything right. Or you can have like a standard operation procedure as well. And also when you change those documents, let's say the document owner changed the document, the system will automatically update that document on the process, the procurement process. So you're never going to be using an outdated document. So all this integration allows what we call the single version of the truth for organizations. Of course, our CIS is being used not just for ESG, it's being used for many other things, for pharmaceutical industry, for food and beverage, for financial sectors. So you have a system in that sense that is being tested in many different areas, and we go very deep in every area. And the integration
Yes.
between elements are fantastic. Yes, my time is up.
I'm afraid so. Thank you. I know there's a lot of depth, and yeah, that you've really tied everything together very eloquently, and the integration of all that details. Yeah, possibility and very powerful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
I'm going to introduce our last speaker, Ian Huntley, who is co-founder and chief technology officer at Rifle Shot Performance Holdings. He has over 45 years industry experience and has assisted many companies in energy, mining, and manufacturing sector to save millions of dollars by squeezing that extra percent yield where it's really making a huge difference in small amounts. He's finding the detail. I'm going to pass over to Ian straight away. Thank you.
Caroline, thanks for the introduction, and thank you again to our panelists, Alex, Michael, Jürgen, and of course Dilly, for pointing out some of the pitfalls and requirements in a modern ESG world, and also pointing out that the whole subject of ESG is an evolving journey. Thank you to Jesse for going through the detail of what we have on offer with the SoftExpert suite, including the methodology of how we would implement it using the SoftExpert methodology. So my particular task in the few minutes we have left is to introduce to you the Rifle Shot Professional Services. So one of the maxims we have within the company, we're as good as the company we keep. And that is both the solution partners, which are in the box in the center. And these are some of the biggest names in the industry, certainly within their domain, in the top 3 globally. Some of these companies, we've had partnerships coming up for 20 years. And a key part of why we emphasize the relationship we have with our partners is it's very much a two-way street. So we will take and work with our clients and feedback to our partners what future requirements are and make sure that we get to a point where we can implement it. Around the edge of the screen, you see a selection of some of our partners over the years. And again, many of these have been with us certainly more than 2 decades. And in terms of personal relationships, some of them into the 5th decade with us. Names you know, and hopefully you trust. Obviously, we have more partners than this, and customers. One of the best ways I've found to describe what we do in professional services is to go through a couple of cases. So on the left, you see some of our customers. A few of them are in the room today, but they've all asked to be blacked out in the little black boxes. On the right-hand side are some of the functionalities we've implemented over the years for them. But what I want to focus on for today is some of the items in the box in the center, services delivered. You'll each get copies of these slides and the video. And other than the usual advisory, feasibility, etc., the one thing I really want to focus on is in the center of this slide. We pride ourselves in on-time, on-budget projects, that deliver exact functional fits that have been derived from the journey map that we've jointly developed together with our customers. That, to me, is important, that you want to know that what we have put in is fit for purpose, that it meets your requirement, and that we meet our commitments of on time and on budget. Obviously, that's a two-way street. So we need you to work with us to deliver that. Important part of what we also deliver is the growth journey map. I'll refer to it a little bit more, and that has helped us evolve with our customers over many decades to being able to grow with them as the market changes, as the requirements change. And that brings us to the last item that I want to cover, and that's the subject of digitalization. A lot of people are on a digital growth journey. They talk about digitalization, but it's not about the technology alone. It's the process, it's the people, it's where the gaps are, what needs to be pensioned off in terms of legacy solutions, what needs to be thought about in terms of creating that journey. After all, most of what we do falls under the mission critical. So let's go into a bit more detail here. One of the things we've found, and when you work with any professional services organization, 80% of what you do is a requirement and has to be done anyway. We believe in adding to it, and we talk about the differences, what makes us different. So most of the work we do falls in the layer between OT and IT, operational technology and information technology. And how do we make sure that these synchronize, coordinate really, really well to be able to offer the type of solution? And again, I'll drill down into it. Then under the headings, we talk about innovation. We pride ourselves in innovation. Innovation for ourselves in terms of bringing technologies and methods to you. Innovations in our customer to help them discover new aspects of their operation, not just technology, but in the people and the processes, and within our suppliers, to help them innovate and stay at the top of their game. All important, it's all competitive advantage for you, our customers, our suppliers, and for ourselves. You'll see quite a few terms within the presentation I give have the trademark sign-on. And these are things we've developed over the years. So the first one I want to touch on is business alignment and growth. So unless the solution map and that journey is mapped to the business so that you're going to get benefit, that you're going to get buy-in from all players, that it really does fit with where you want to go, we're barking up the wrong tree. So we have a methodology that works on that. And BAG is in fact a subset of what we call a roadmap. What is this journey map that could certainly take multiple years, but even multiple decades? How are you going to get to where you want to go? How do you go through the levels of maturity that you want to experience until you get all the solutions really driving the business? And part of it, in fact, comes from the rifle shot name to keep you focused. Digitalization, I've touched on a little bit, is what are those gaps in terms of technology, of course, training, solutions, people development, process development, and probably several others as they come up. So how do you bridge from where you are today to where you want to go to meet the long-term goals? And this is particularly important in the ESG environment, which is an evolving discipline amongst anything. Yes, we've had some of the components of ESG as outlined by the previous speakers, but it is a moving target. None of us were speaking about this as little as 10 years ago. We then talk about SEP, and this is an umbrella methodology for system enhancement and portfolio planning, as we call it. So this contains not just where you are, not just this project and future evolvements of it, but how does that whole landscape fit within the roadmap to be able to give you what you're looking for, and that we build a good long-term mutually beneficial relationship. And when I say mutually beneficial, it's beneficial for you, it's beneficial for our solution partners, and of course for us. The way we deliver is with what we call resultants. We try and avoid the typical joke about consulting, that consulting would often be, let's borrow your watch to tell you your time. Our customers prefer to get results. They like to get the results on time, on budget, and with a good fit. And that's what our resultants are focused on doing. So in some cases, we may need mid-correction in a project because the original goals weren't exactly what you need. So what we talk about here is it's important that our customers use what is delivered, that they get the results, they get the benefit. So this is driven by another term we refer to. You often find customers talk about a client manager. We've coined the term single point of contact, SPOC. And that is to make sure that your interface with us and our solution partners is easy, that it's escalated in a single point. If there are issues, and most projects, to be frank, have issues in them, you want to know that those are handled promptly, efficiently, and there's a good record. We focus a lot on customer success management, and that's based on continuous improvement. So that continuous improvement says, how do we use what we've got? How do we develop them further? But in terms of what the SPOC brings to the party, and Caroline is one of our SPOCs, running this webinar for many of our customers is to give them new insights, whether they're market directions, new releases from our solution partners, new developments in industry, things to think about so that we have a family that can chat together. And we encourage our customers to talk to each other. So that all falls within that. So we say it's the differences that count. And hopefully you agree with us. Will you survive the challenges of being a world-class player? One of my early mentors, and this is well over 2 decades ago, was, and I count him as a friend, Olin Thompson. And the 2 sayings that I really like, which are pertinent to this subject. One is understand and look for what makes you different, not what makes you the same. And hopefully I've highlighted some of that in the previous slide. But I think the key thing for ESG, and that has come out in the previous speakers, if you can't model reality properly, down to the level of detail, the timing, and the layers, how are you going to manage the reality? And the answer to that is a rhetorical question. You can't. So let's have a look at our approach. I missed something here. The devil is in the detail. Let's talk about this. So we talk about top-down, bottoms-up purpose. And you have the wider world that you interact with. So you have the public and regulatory stakeholders, the communities. These are all the people that you want to share results and real data. And of course, it needs to be accurate. Otherwise, they're going to come back and bite you, literally. We live in the world today where we have the board and we have active shareholders. And they're becoming more and more active because, quite frankly, and I'm sure you've done it as well, I've sat in shareholder presentations by the board where some of that data is, quite frankly, suspect. There's no other way of putting it. So part of what we want to do with this methodology is make sure that you're never caught with suspect data. The board and shareholders are fed information from the operational C-suite, the people you have put in charge of running the operation to make sure it works both in the short term, that medium-term issues are highlighted, and that it's again accurate. They get their information from the operational management. These are the day-to-day operational management people who need to have their information not only correct and in time, but it needs to be in context, so valid context. So it's no good having streams of detailed data with no context. It needs to be related. So for example, if you have a temperature that's going wild, unless that context is related to something, it's meaningless data. The operational management require the operators and supervisory management to be able to guide the business and alert at a detail level to make sure all of the people above and down to this level are aligned with the goals, that the data rolls up as information and that correct guidance to the organization can be given. And of course, at the bottom, we have the data sources themselves. This is the raw, unclassified data, which might be transactional, it might be sensor-based, it might come from PLCs or whatever is there, but it is data. And this requires processing into layers of information to support the management functions I've shown above. So how do we do this? So what we do is we design from the top down, downwards. So what do you want out of the system? Where does the source data, the root data, come from? And as I said, it's likely to be in layers, because you need it at different levels of detail, different context, different time frames and resolution. By drilling down this way and architecting this way, we get to real data that's in time and in detail. We can now then start building the systems, whether it's ESG or any other system, quite frankly. And that way we build your wall of information, not a wall to prevent. It's all the bricks in the right place, that they all connect together, that they work together. And we build from the bottom up. We're trying to eliminate some of the dubious sources of data. I love spreadsheets. I use them extensively, but for modeling. I don't like them from an auditability point of view, so we need to build from the bottom. in the different layers and to end up with the context. So then it becomes accurate and reliable decision support information, regardless of the level you're at. What we want to do with this is also take you on a journey. And this is the roadmap journey that we're highlighting in BAG for this particular domain. And the journey reflects the practitioner maturity. Nobody starts a journey, particularly with ESG, which is an evolving science, as I've said, that you're going to get to the absolute level of maturity. You're going to initiate the project. You're going to start learning, become a learning organization. You're going to do the basics, and then you're going to build your expertise. You're going to add to it as you become more advanced on the journey until you become a master. So what does a master really end up? A master is somebody who's at the top of their game. They are using their information and their practices to avoid issues before they happen. And I'll come to that one. The tools we typically use from the BAG are the analysis and diagnostics, the roadmap journey plan, and the digitalization that I've spoken about. So how do we do it? Let's look at a typical rifle shot ESG engagement plan. So the first thing is phase one, and typically we can do an SE project of this sort of nature in 6 to 9 months. But what do we mean there? We start off with a discovery, and in that discovery, other than setting up the project charters and the usual requirements for a good project, we look at the maturity, we look at the readiness of yourselves and your whole team and partners, and we put that in an assessment. That then informs our draft roadmap. One of the things we highly recommend on any complex project like this is you take a thin slice and we do a proof of value. That proof of value needs to have predetermined success criteria. And then we launch the pilot project, we execute it, and the most important part is the lessons learned review afterwards. That lessons learned review will then inform phase two. Do we need to update the template? Do we need to change some of the project methodology? Do we need to add critical functionality? How do we propose to roll it out now that we've got some experience? What is our change management plan going to look like? Because unless people buy into it and use it, you're wasting your money. So in the phase two, we then have the level one rollout, where what we do is we update the original template, we determine the next site, and again, we do a review and update. So from there, we should have a comfortable feeling of how it's going to roll out on the other sites. We model that, we plan the sites, the sequence, do the next site. And of course, with every stage, you want to do a review. Phase three, we start adding functionality. First of all, what about all the integrations that we might have want to add in, depending what system you're coming from? And again, a typical SoftExpert ESG application and integration would have 20 to 30 different integration points to pull them together. Then what do we want to do in terms of workflow? Do we want to automate some of these workflows, force tasks, force escalations? And in terms of the level of maturity, this is an important part. From there, we move to what can we put in to the system that allows for proactive prevention through the analytics, whether they're predictive analytics or just a trend line, what procedures need to support it. And lastly, do we need any of the other modules from SoftExpert, like project planning and organization, something we use ourselves? And then we keep replicating. So in our typical environment, to summarize, we have the project engagement, we have the maturity assessment, we draft the user requirement specifications, we put it into a roadmap, we launch the project office on the pilot, and we also take into account what other subsidiary projects. Maybe you have a legacy system that can't feed the information, or a gap, or you need training, all of those sorts of things. And then, of course, we move into system enhancement and project portfolio, where we're looking at the long-term life cycle. I really hope you enjoy the journey with us, that you get really good benefits, and that we have a long-term relationship. With that, I'd like to hand back to Dilly.
Thank you, Ian. Yeah, it's a collective effort, and certainly a journey in all aspects, where there's tons of detail to consider, which certainly can be quite overwhelming. I know that we have just reached 12 o'clock, and just in the interest of time, I do know that everybody is busy and has actual hands-on jobs to be doing. Gina, Dilly, are we going to continue and answer some questions while everyone is still on the line?
Yeah, I see, Caroline, there's some people on the line, and I think if there's some pressing questions, we could answer them. I did see a few in the chat box, and I think it's largely directed to Jesse. So if you want to manage that, Caroline.
Sure. Okay, so first of all, one question was, can customized reports and dashboards within SoftExpert be automatically presented to stakeholders via a company's website?
Yes, indeed, it can be customized. That is, the business intelligence components allows you to create customized reports. Basically, all the data you have, you just drag and drop very easily and can create customized report without being like an expert. But then if you have like a DBA person, also he can do advanced thing, use the SQL report. So it's all available in the tool. There is a data model where you can use, but there is a lot of ready-to-go reports where you can send them directly to a portal, or you can configure it by email to send by email to those that you want to send.
Thank you. And then question, does using systems like this typically prompt upgrading of other business systems, operating systems, general ledger, obviously whatever is integrated? And is this done in tandem or in sequence?
So if you're talking about integration, then we have web service that integrates that in real time. Okay, so we can, or based on events. So when you need the data, some event that need the data goes to the other system, pull that data, bring to the form. I don't know if that was the question, but I think that was regarding integration, and that was, so there is online real-time integration. You can also use import and export tools for like exporting a spreadsheet from other system, importing as a suite, or even getting that there is an engine that can go to a specific folder, pull the spreadsheet and import it automatically.
Okay, thank you. And then how would you incorporate stakeholder and supplier feedback into your own SoftExpert system so that you know the information you're getting from them is correct to prevent unintentional greenwashing? Is that possible?
So basically, you know, the system support external users. Those workflows, they can also be driven to external people to upload data. But of course, to ensure that that data is accurate, then you need to audit. You know, the tool is you bring its accountability, so you know we upload the data when he uploaded, what data he has, so you can ask for evidence. Remember, that is a screen that you can just drag and drop image, PDF, videos, then they can just add that as evidence. But you know, audit is the best thing then, and then the system can also create a kind of a audit. You can create a suppliers portal to monitor all the portals, all the suppliers data. The system handle external, a special type of user that's called external users. So this is fantastic too, because basically it handles all the security layers that's necessary for external user to access the platform.
Okay, thank you. And then last one, can ESG initiatives within the system be managed as projects, including risk management?
Fantastic question. I guess I mentioned that when you define your balance scorecard, you define initiatives, you always can end up having a project connected to that. So every KPI you see on that balance scorecard can be connected to a project. Okay, so basically you can use project, and not just project integrate with the workflows. So even during the project execution, you can have action planning, all the documentation handled by the system, all the risk. You can select your project structure and go to the risk model, risk component, and do risk identification on your project activity. Then you can create controls on that. So yes, and there is multiple levels and ways to do that using our platform.
Wonderful, thank you. So, yeah, it's clear from the questions, from the conversations, from all the presentations, that all of the elements of sustainability are hugely complex and highly emotional issues, actually. And we all know that when emotions run high, IQ tends to jump out the window. And having a system like this brings us back to a place of logic and practicality to make the best decisions. And I think that ties back to enforcing accountability, so that when somebody external or internal asks, what were you thinking, you're able to answer that with clarity and incorporate regulatory policies, corporate frameworks, and workflow systems so you can show the detail. Love it. Thank you very much. So I would like to thank everybody for your participation, for your input, for your questions, and just let you know that wherever you are on your journey, whichever phase you're at, and if there's anything anyone is struggling with, please do contact us. This is a collective effort, and everybody in this room, think I can speak confidently on everyone's behalf, is here to support each other. I hope
Caroline,
you do.
what I would like to suggest, Caroline, you know, we've got a community. I think there was 120 people that registered to attend. And, you know, there's this term that says slowly, slowly, suddenly. And you know, it's suddenly now, ESG is here. And what I would like to suggest, Caroline, the community that you have now, the 120, that we actually create a family, if you will, with this community moving forward, where we can share information, we can learn together. We have the tool, we know that, we use the tool ourselves. So this is one suggestion. The other is, you spend 2 hours with us of your valuable time. So think about it. Look at some of the key things. What are you actually going to do about this as a next step? So we are here to assist you to walk on this journey. So please contact Caroline. And in closing, I would like to thank Michael, Alex, and Jürgen, and Buenos Aires to Jess, who's joining us all the way from Spain. And as you could see, he did the demo in real time. So this could be worked very, very well on the web within your portals in your organization. So thank you all.
Thank you, everyone, and take care. We'll be in touch.